Hello again, and welcome to another great episode of the Empower Business Show. I'm Hayden. I'm here again with my really good friend David. David, how are you doing?
Doing great, Hayden. Yeah, so great to be here with you again. Another Friday, another exciting Empower Business Show. Looking forward to it, my friend.
Yeah, 100%. And over the last couple of weeks, we've been kind of reviewing. Last week, we talked about the inspiration we've taken from the Olympics and how we can bring those ideas into business. And this week, we wanted to touch on a topic that I think is really important for us right now. We touched on this before, but I think today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this topic, which is
Yeah.
this whole concept of the future of work. So, as we're starting to see economies begin to recover on the back of the pandemic, we're starting to see office locations opening back up, more freedom of movement that's happening again. So that's going to inevitably lead to this kind of view of what is the office world going to look like in the future, and how's that going to have an impact on things that we're really interested in, which is that kind of high performance cultures. So Dave,
Right.
what are some of the things that you're noticing or talking to your clients about that they're thinking into right now?
Yeah, the first thing I'm noticing, Hayden, is that this new paradigm, this new way of working is requiring a new thought process, a new
Mm,
mindset, because it isn't like we've had it in the past. And so many of us who are in leadership roles only really know work one way, and that is in an office. Or some of us who've worked at home, maybe it's only at home. But this idea of a hybrid, I think, is going to be really the challenge. And that's where I see a lot of leaders having a challenge is, number one, just wrapping their mind around the fact that human beings, their people, their employees, their team can be productive from home
yeah,
as well as in the office. And at the same time, the challenge is mixing the two, the people that are working in the office versus the people who are working from home. So I think that's what I'm seeing is just the idea of how do we migrate those two? How do we
mm,
connect the two? And it's requiring a new mindset, to be honest, Hayden. It's requiring leaders to throw out their preconceived notions like I need to see them or they need to be in the office
yeah,
so that we can collaborate. Not necessarily true, but
yeah.
doing it then is a little bit trickier. And so I think that that's the challenge that we're going to see going forward in this future of work, and really where we're lying today in our businesses.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really interesting as we move forward because just if we look around ourselves, as we say over here in the UK, we've started to open things up a little bit more. There's a bit more freedom to be able to go
Yeah.
out. And we're already seeing people go back to some of the habits they will have
Yeah.
not done for the last 18 months because they
Right.
weren't allowed to. And yet now they're that freedom to be able to do and make choices, people are slowly going back to the way it was. And
Hmm.
I think there is a big challenge in the workplace as to do we go back to just the way it was because that just feels the most comfortable thing to do as we
Yeah.
start to open up? Or do we retain some of the benefits we've learned from this whole experience? Like
Yeah.
you're saying, the fact that we can have dispersed teams who are being super productive and
Yeah.
really generating great outputs,
Hmm.
and yet do we and fight that feeling that we might have, which is okay, well, whilst they've all worked really hard and been productive, I still want to get back into the office and they need to be kind of in my eyesight every minute of the day for me to be able to
Right.
control what's happening. So I
Yeah.
think it's going to be really interesting for us as we start to explore this.
Yeah.
And for me, I think the question is when we're building really high performance cultures, which I know you are really passionate about and do a lot of work on,
Hmm.
how much of that can we do when we are working in this hybrid, or what do we need to change when we're thinking about that from a business perspective? Because I think that's a really
Yeah.
interesting viewpoint for us.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that the first thing that I'm seeing is just a transition from what you're describing is that command and control mindset, that
Mm,
command and control leadership style, as opposed to really what we need is an empowerment style. So, we're here on the Empowered Business Show, on the Empowered Living platform, and empowerment means allowing our people to be able to produce and perform in the way that works well for them.
mm,
And then when we talk about culture, it's helping all of the synergies with those individuals come together as a team. And it's a challenge. So, I mean, I talk a lot about rituals and creating those rituals or those cadences and the rhythms that frankly cause and create those habits within the workplace. And I think that we just have to rethink those. We just have to rethink how we're doing those, because clearly we're going to have some people who are in the office. We're going to have some people working from home. And so the real challenge that I'm seeing is the marrying of the technology and being very intentional, especially for those who are in the room, to make sure that the people who are on the screen don't feel like second-class citizens or not connected. And I think that that's what the challenge that many leaders have right now. And so, the one thing that I'm talking to my clients about is just that intentionality, making sure that at top of mind, when you get into a meeting and you start a meeting and you have some people on a screen and you have some people in the office sitting at a table or at some chairs, and you have to include them all. Yeah. And I think that's the first thing. So keeping that top of mind. But honestly, the second thing is making sure that we don't talk over each other. The art of communication is really going to be super important to not only talk and listen and make sure that whoever's facilitating the conversation facilitates in such a way that we keep the people who are in the room from having side conversations and extraneous noise, because that's a real issue. If you're in the room and you're whispering or you're talking to your neighbor about a certain topic that someone just said, and the people online or in the virtual world don't pick it up, and so there's a real challenge there for the facilitator to make sure that it's one conversation at a time. And so I think those are the two top of mind that I see. And I don't know about you with your clients, Hayden, but what are you seeing? What are some of the things that you're coming up with?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the side conversation. And again, it's that balance, isn't it? Because we don't want to create this kind of teacher-like ethos as a facilitator where it's kind of everybody talks and it's just catching people. But equally, there's got to be that respect for the fact that people might not be there. And it is a fine balance between the two. But I think being inclusive of everybody, really thinking and getting everybody in the team to think about the fact that there are other people having a different experience to what I'm having in this meeting, and how do I respect that difference of opinion, I think is super important. The other thing that I'm talking to a lot of my clients about is kind of this sense of belonging that happens, because when we walk into a physical location, a workplace, and this is, I think, really important for business owners who are listening to this show. If you are have an office location or a workplace, when people walk through that door and they see the logo or they see the colors of your business on the furniture or in the walls, or however you kind of mark out your space, there is this natural connection and belonging that happens. As creatures who love tribal kind of formats and structures, we want to be part of something, we like to belong. The physical act of being in a space that we feel connected to. That's why every great sports team has a uniform, because the players who put the uniform on feel part of the legacy of that particular team. And it's the same in our businesses. When people walk through that front door, they've got this physical connection to the space. And of course, when they're working from home virtually, then you don't have that same physical connection to the space. So one of the things that I'm working with a lot of my clients on is, how do you create that sense of belonging through additional tools and resources to make sure that your kind of brand is fully centered with them. So encouraging people to use branded backdrops, so they can have a screen when they're looking into the Zooms, they can actually see their logos behind them and they've got that kind of wall of their company's logos. Things like that it seems like a really simple thing, but it actually does make a real difference for people in that sense of belonging. I've worked with clients who've sent everybody a branded mug, so if they're having a cup of tea or coffee when they're working from home, they can use a company branded. And it's all of these little symbols which are so powerful when you're building a culture of that sense of belonging. So I think it's important for us not to lose sight of the value that having a connection to a brand, to a logo, to a space, to a team, to an ethos really counts for people who work in our teams, because that's part of where that loyalty comes from.
Yeah.
Wanting to do well for the team because I feel connected to it. And if I don't have the same connection, then do I have the same impetus to act? So I think that's something that I'm noticing, and again, working hard on in my own business, and also working hard on with others in their businesses to really think into.
Yeah, and I really like the intentionality of connecting to the team, and the logos, the mugs. I think that's a fantastic idea, and a fantastic being intentionally and working on that connection. One of the things that I saw as you were talking about that, one of the things that I saw from one of my clients who has started doing a once a month gathering, just a social gathering for their team. It started just out in their parking lot. And so that way they can socially distance, they could be, very safe and yet still feel connected. And so that intentionality of socializing as a team, I think, is another way that we can be very proactive and very intentional with what works for us. Now, it may not necessarily be that we can all be in the parking lot. Of course, as we're recording this, it's summertime, and so it's easier to do that. But there will still be ways that we can gather as a team on a periodic basis. It may not necessarily be every week. Maybe it's only once a month. Maybe it's only once a quarter, especially if you're geographically dispersed. The other thing, too, that I've seen one of my clients do is specifically in their one-on-ones with their team, ask that question: how can you best feel connected to the team? And just like any good coaching opportunity, asking those good questions is going to help us to be able to know what it is that will help our team feel connected. And so asking those great questions of our team in our one-on-ones and being very intentional with that. And maybe if you're the business leader, you're just going around and talking to all of your team and finding out, so that you have a better sense of how you can direct and how you can lead that charge to be connected and keep your team connected.
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, a really simple tip that all of us could go and do. Following on from this session today, we could all go out and have those conversations with our teams and just start the conversation about what's going to help you feel like you are connected to the bigger picture or the whole, or just to feel connected to one another, which is super important.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the other thing that I'm, again, talking about a lot of my clients around is, we often see it, and we've used the word already, that this is a challenge for us. But of course, on the flip side of every challenge, there's opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah.
With every difficult circumstance, there comes a positive that comes out of it. So one of the things that I'm talking to a lot of my clients around is, how do we see this as an opportunity? And particularly when we start to think about, if we've historically been tied to a geographic location because we need people in the office, now we know that we can work productively and effectively in a dispersed team. The fact that opens up your recruitment for future potential employees means that you're no longer restricted by the best talent within the town or the district or the state that you operate in. Now you can be literally looking anywhere.
Exactly.
You can literally be looking anywhere in the globe for talent if that suits your business. So the opportunity to just think differently and say, well, actually, we would normally recruit in this way. Maybe we can recruit differently now because we don't have the same requirements. And if we need to get people together for the social connection, doing that a few times a year versus every day means that there is more opportunities, and it becomes more cost effective to recruit from different locations. So I think, again, throwing out the paradigm that you talked about earlier, that means we can only recruit within a 20-mile radius of our office location, versus the world is potentially our recruitment recruitment pool. I think, again, is that shift that we can all make in terms of the way that we think about our business, and we're not constrained by that.
Yeah, and when you, it's such a great shout out to Hayden. I think that is such a great opportunity that the world is our playground now, and we can look beyond our borders, and I think that provides an opportunity for a mindset shift for a lot of business owners as well, and also what I think that also brings in as our future of work is this idea of diversity. And when we think about our cultures, here in the United States or in the UK, we have a culture of our own. But what happens when we bring in cultures from India and Malaysia and China and Mexico? All of these different places help us to bring a diversity, which is so beautiful. And again, it's going to provide a challenge and an opportunity from a mindset perspective for a lot of leaders. But that's what I think is going to propel us and really help us in this future of work, because we're going to be able to work in such new ways with such new people, new ways of thinking. And when we open our minds to those ways of thinking, my goodness, there are so many problems that we can solve. And I just think that it's going to be so beautiful. And so I love the fact that you talked about, in every challenge, there's an opportunity, because I truly believe that. And I think that bringing that diversity of thought, bringing the diversity of culture is going to be nothing but good for our organizations.
Yeah, and I've got a great example. I was working with a client last week, and this individual had been stumbling over a challenge within their business for a while. And then we just talked about, okay, well, what if you didn't need to do this task? Where would you go?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if I didn't need to do it, I might, and then we just talked about, well, there's all these freelance opportunities that are out there. So we know there are sites like Fiverr and other companies like that who offer this relatively inexpensive access to these specialists who you don't need to employ, because this whole gig economy that's happening in the world, as well as part of this future of work, means you can access real talent for relatively low cost. Without having to take the overhead onto your business, which you probably couldn't afford to do. And you're getting great quality that's moving you through a stumbling block that you aren't quite skilled in to do. That's been holding your business back for ages. And this individual has been procrastinating over this particular task for weeks. And within a couple of days, he got it resolved, got somebody in to do the work for him, completely fixed the problem, and now had a complete different outlook on his old business because this thing was really weighing down on him, this procrastination over the problem, and all he could see was the barriers and the obstacles. And it just took that shift of the paradigm, that change in the mindset that you referenced earlier. I think, well, okay, let me approach this in a different way. Let me be creative around the solution. And all of a sudden the problem went away, the solution became clear, and he's been able to then move forward really rapidly in the plans that he had for his business, just by that one shift in the way that we look at things. So not only do we have this opportunity to recruit employees for our businesses on a global scale, but we can attract and get services that we can bring into our businesses, particularly for a small business owner. If there's anything that you just don't like doing in your business, there are so many people out there who love doing it, who will do it at a relatively cost-effective way. That means you can focus on the things that really do make a difference for your business. And that's that shift, rather than battling through and thinking about the traditional ways we would have tackled this before. I think the new world is going to challenge us to think, well, actually, how could I do this? And what are the opportunities that exist? Because it is changing. The whole way we do business has changed forever, and it will continue to change. And I think it's embracing those changes.
And not only just, I love the word you use, embracing those changes, because it really connotates this leaning in. When I think of an embrace, it's like going forward and really embracing and saying, hey, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to grow. And I love growth. I love being able to see what comes next. How could we, is a great question. What are those opportunities? Keep asking yourself those questions. And if you are a business owner, I think one of my biggest growth parts of my journeys this year is to grow my team. And I think, just to your point, Hayden, there are so many people who have so many they're talented in ways that I will never be, and I don't
Absolutely.
want to be.
Yeah.
And I want to play to my strengths. And so I think you, as the business owner that is watching, you want to play to your strengths. And when we do that, then that's going to give us the biggest opportunity to grow as a company, to grow as humans, to grow as teams, and also solve the problems that we're solving. I think that's the biggest thing that I believe that this new future of work is going to give to us, is just the opportunity to really focus on what lights us up and what we do best. And when we do that, we're going to be able to solve amazing problems.
Yeah, just such a great shout. I love what that thought process of where do we focus on the problems where we are best placed to work on and to resolve, and
Mm-hmm.
that gives us that opportunity to say to solve some of those problems that we wouldn't have ordinarily had the time or the energy to go in and solve, and that's going to shift our businesses forward dramatically when we are able to focus our energies on just doing what we are, I believe best. And I think that's going to be, we talked again about mindset shifts and paradigms. I think the big thing that I'm hoping to see, and I hope it lasts out the back of this whole horrible situation that we've been in, is that people start to really appreciate that they can focus on the things they love and they can enjoy the things they love in their life, and they don't have to put those all to one side in the pursuit of the job, the career, the financial benefit. And actually the two can work together, in a harmonious relationship where you can do what you love in an environment that you enjoy doing it, and also have the free time to do the other things outside of work that you love. So I'm hoping that this real desire for focusing on the things that you really care about lasts beyond this situation, and we don't fall back into kind of where we have been, which is this pursuit of the 9 to 5 or pursuit of the career taking precedent, and everything else kind of we put on hold until we retire.
Right.
We don't want to get back to that kind of living. I hope we don't get back to that way of living, because I think there is this shift and we need to harness that shift. And that's for, again, every single business owner or everybody who's working in organizations who's listening to this, is what are you going to do to ensure that you don't fall back into that way of being that created the kind of frustrations, the angst that we were all experiencing, and the exhaustion and everything else. And how do you keep that harmony in your life going forward? I think that's a really important question that we all need to think into.
Yeah, and it really brings up the topic of self-care, because I think one of the things that we're going to see in the future of work is getting outside of that quote unquote 9 to 5 or the 8 to 5 or whatever the time frame is that we're not going to be constrained by time boundaries. And so with that, we can, as humans, tend to go overboard and work too much, especially those of us who are achievers. And so we have to be consciously aware, especially as business leaders, of ourselves. First and foremost, we have to understand where our tripping points are, and where we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, taking care of our health, taking care of our mental health, taking care of then our people, and ensuring that they take care of themselves as well. So I think that as we think of this future of work, I believe that it's going to really take another intentional focus on making sure that we do have that self-care and the ability for our people to take the time when it's necessary to get away, to have a rejuvenation day, so to speak. I was telling you off camera
Absolutely.
that something that I started building into my calendar, and I haven't nailed down that habit yet. I haven't gotten it perfected yet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on putting in those days where I can actually just create and allow my mind to think, and just get some space to read and just to do the things that light me up. And I think that as we look into the future of work, that's going to be something that we're going to need to allow our people to do, as well as focus on ourselves as well.
Yeah, and I think, again, if we can ask for anything out of this, we talk about empowered business, and you referenced earlier what empowered business is. But for me, it would be wonderful if we could get to this place where our businesses and the organization, the places we go to do our work, are
Yeah.
the sources of health for us rather than the
Mhm.
sources of unhealthy lifestyles.
Yeah.
And if we can get that right, where actually you can do a job you love in an environment that inspires you, where you get to be your best self around great teammates who are
Mhm.
all working together towards a common outcome, where you all feel empowered together, then there's no reason why our businesses can't be a source of health as opposed to the lack of health that maybe many have experienced previously, the stress and the pressures and everything else that we hear about. So
Yeah,
that for me
exactly.
would be the challenge for every business owner on here. If you've got the remit to change up the way you do things, to create your businesses as a source of health for your workers, a place where they can feel at their absolute best, to be empowered to live their best lives, then that's got to be an amazing thing that we all have the power to do in our businesses, to create that opportunity. And I think that's a great calling for all of us to take that step and take that challenge on.
Yeah, totally agree, Hayden. I think that these are some of the topics that a lot of business owners who may be watching are grappling with, and so I just want to challenge those of you who are watching to look at those things that you might have to do differently. What opportunities are in front of you to be able to do business differently, to be able to help your people live their best lives, so that your organization can achieve its vision and its mission, and really live out the purpose that you have for your organization. I'd love to hear your thoughts
Mm-hmm.
in the comments below. I know our ambassadors are doing a great job of just facilitating. And first of all, I want to say thank you to all the ambassadors who are on our team and giving of their time to be able to be present and really engage with the people who are watching. But for those of you who are watching, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities that you're seeing as a business owner, as a business leader with your team? Tag us so that we can see it, because sometimes we don't see these after the show, but I'd love to be able to hear what those things are so that we can cheer you on and maybe even help you in your journey as well.
100%. And some of you might be sitting there thinking, okay, well, this is all sounds great, and I'd love to be that source of well-being, but how do I go about doing it? We just want to
Yeah.
quickly remind you, we do have
Yes.
the Empower Business Blueprint, which is a blueprint to how you can structure yourself, your the culture in your business and your team, to
Yes.
create these empowered businesses that we've been talking about, to create a business
Yeah.
that is a source of health and well-being for everybody who works there, rather than potentially a business that is causing the unhealthy aspects that we've talked about previously. So just want to point you in the direction of that. Some great resources that we'd love you to go and have a look at. They will give you practical tips about how you can start to create an empowered business in your organization, and help you to take it forward. And again, we've said it before, but they're also great tools for anybody on here who's a coach or a consultant, who's
Yes.
working with businesses who are also fighting with these challenges that are going on, these opportunities. The Business Blueprint is a great resource that you can go and use in your coaching and consulting with your clients as well, with our absolute blessing.
Yeah.
They're a gift to use. So check them out. They will definitely be useful for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
David, it's been a great episode again. Really interesting topic. And I know we're going to talk more about this over the coming weeks as well,
Yes.
because there's so much for us to unpick in this shifting place that we are in right now, and the shifting way that we're working. So what are your final thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I think that the final thoughts really is just as business owners and as business leaders, we have to look for those opportunities. We have to look for the opportunities that are in front of us right now. Yes, they may be different than what we know, and maybe are shaking us up a little bit, and maybe we're resisting it. But don't resist. Look for those opportunities. Create new habits, new ways of being. And I think that the current work environment and the future of our work, yes, it's going to change, but I really truly believe it's going to also present us some amazing opportunities to change the world.
Absolutely. What a great way to finish this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure. Please do let us know some of your thoughts on what we've been talking about today. We'd love to hear from you. Have a wonderfully empowered week, and we will look forward to seeing you again next Friday. So have a wonderful week, everyone.
Bye for now.